Facebook, come on in YouTube. We're getting ready to start my show, Jimmy Rants. I have been having a time trying to get the YouTube feed to come on. For some reason on my computer today, it was stuck. So I don't know what happened, but we are late now to the show over on Instagram. So if you're joining us, we are on Jimmy Rants, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We do this Monday through Friday. So here we go with today's Jimmy Rants. Come on in, make yourselves at home. I got to get this show on the road. Here we go. Are there side effects we don't know about yet about the V word for 9-1 DIVOC? Find out the details here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, we do go live Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time right here. We are Jimmy Rants over on Instagram. So if you're not following me there, go follow Jimmy Rants over on Instagram and you can engage in the content. We also simulcast on my Facebook page as well as over on YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on the replay. It's available on the Jimmy Rants IGTV. As soon as this is over, it will go right up there. We also put the past episodes up over on YouTube. If you type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. And then finally, if you go to the official website for this show, it is JimmyRants.com. And there is also where you can access the show to see it on replay. But I love it when you guys come here live and engage in the content. So thank you guys for being here today. All right, so today I have a very interesting show to do for you, and I just noticed I misspelled a word. So I put 9-1 DIVOD, but it should be DIVOC. Here, let's do that again. Let's kill that. See, real-time live show. This is what you do. So those of you on the Facebook feed and on the YouTube feed, I won't be able to fix it, but here on the Instagram feed, you betcha, we're going to fix it. So I guess autocorrect didn't like that I was using code for that nasty thing out there that we all need a V word for. But yes, the V word is here. As of late Friday afternoon, the Pfizer V word was given emergency use authorization by the FDA. So it is now available to be distributed to anyone who wants it in that high risk category. I think they're going to give it to frontline workers in the health field, older people. You know, they're all kind of in the line. And then I think maybe they're even considering some of the frontline workers in retail. So these are the first people going to be getting this 9-1 DIVOC V word. And if you're new to me saying 9-1 DIVOC, just go backwards. And that's what it is. And of course, V word should be very apparent, that thing they're going to stick you with, that V word. And I'm speaking in code so I don't get banned or I don't get some warning thrown on my videos. So just understand there's a method to the madness here. But I have some very big concerns about this V word. And we've articulated it. You've probably seen a lot about it. The rushedness of this V word. And over the weekend, I posted a little snippet from my Jimmy Rants on Friday on Ask Me Anything. I did a series of stories all about the V word. And there was a nurse friend of mine who chimed in. It's like, well, this was not rushed. It's been in development for over 10 years since the first coronavirus kind of V word was being developed. And so this isn't a rushed V word, And so I said, okay, fair enough, but it's still the very first mRNA V word we've ever had. That's modified RNA. It literally goes into your cells and transforms them and expresses a protein. And it's not something that I think we need to take lightly. And I have two stories, you guys, all about this one from Pfizer and the concerns even about the mRNA coming from Moderna, which, remember, the company name Moderna stands for modified RNA. That's where they got Moderna from. And then the one from AstraZeneca, all of these are mRNA. And if you're not familiar with that terminology, go do some research on it. But I have a letter to the editor that was published in the British Medical Journal. I want to read you. And then I have a new story about the Pfizer 9-1 DIVOC V word, and that it shows some major concerns, especially for older people. So if you know people that are older that want to take this V word for 9-1 DIVOC, you might want to listen up today because this could be really interesting information. But this letter to the editor is going to apply to all of you, because we know these things don't just come without any consequences at all. And what this letter to the editor is concerned about is whether taking this V word for this specific 9-1 DIVOC virus is going to cause autoimmune disease. So listen to this. Dear editor, mass vaccination offers the best exit strategy from the 9-1 DIVOC pandemic. Pfizer-BioNTech's recent announcement, therefore, is encouraging. Their V-word candidate was more than 90% effective in preventing 9-1 DIVOC infection in participants without prior infection. Being an mRNA V-word, mass production is cheaper and more straightforward than any other V-word formulations. mRNA V-words effect coded protein production in the recipient's body. In the case of 9-1 DIVOC, inert spike antigen proteins are produced. Normally, these enable SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus particles to enter the host cells, but therapeutically, inoculation triggers humoral, which is antibody-mediated acquired immunity. So they outline beautifully what these mRNAs are and why they are supposed to work. But listen to this. Severe fatal cases of 9-1 DIVOC are associated with immune hyperactivation and excessive cytokine release. So that's the inflammatory. As soon as this enters your system, there's this inflammatory cytokine that tries to attack this as soon as it enters your system, leading to multi-organ failure. A broad range of mechanisms with a final common pathway appear to be involved. However, it has been suggested that molecular mimicry may contribute to the problem with antibodies to SARS-CoV-2 spike glycoproteins cross-reacting with structurally similar host heptapeptide protein sequences, for example, interleukin-7 and alveolar sulfatectin proteins. I'm not a fancy schmancy speaker of these terms, but let's just put it this way. It is mimicking in your body that there is a foreign invader of something that isn't a foreign invader. So when the body starts attacking itself with a normal process, that is autoimmunity. And this is the concern that's being laid out in this letter to the editor to the British Medical Journal. It also raises an acute autoimmune response against them. Autoinflammatory dysregulation in genetically susceptible individuals and other autoimmune mechanisms such as epitope spreading and bystander activation might also contribute to acute but also chronic autoimmunity during and after 9-1 DIVOC. So it could just be a temporary thing that doesn't really cause a lot of damage, or it could last long after exposure to 9-1 DIVOC. And let's remember, part of what the V word is exposing you to the virus itself. That's the way it works. It exposes you, gives you just enough of exposure that your body builds up the antibodies, and therefore you have protection. That's the method behind the madness to why these V words work. But what if they trigger this autoimmunity? In the understandable socioeconomic rush toward mass V word without long-term safety testing, it would seem that an essential stage in any V word licensing process should involve a careful analysis of the human proteome against V word peptide sequences. This should minimize the risks of both acute autoimmune reactions to inoculation and future chronic autoimmune pathology. The problem, though, and it's wonderful this got in the British Medical Journal, the problem, though, is the cat's out of the bag, and the Pfizer V word is well on its way to a city near you, and it's going to be administered. And it's going to be interesting to watch in the coming years what's going to happen to the rates of autoimmune disease. And that's one big concern, but it's not the only concern, you guys. And if you just joined us, there are major, major health concerns regarding this 9-1 DIVOC V word. And again, if you're new to that, that's my code for go backwards. 9-1 DIVOC backwards is, there you go. And V word is self-evident what I'm talking about. But do they have more side effects than we even know at this point? And it does appear so. So autoimmune is one concern that a letter to the editor in the British Medical Journal had. This story here is out of children'shealthdefense.org. Pfizer 9-1 DIVOC V word trial shows alarming evidence of pathogenic priming in older adults. The V word and related biological products advisory committee briefing document on the Pfizer BioNTech 9-1 DIVOC V word contains disturbing indications that might be a safety signal on pathogenic priming, especially in older adults. They explain what that means here in a minute. Stick with me. This pathogenic priming thing, nobody is talking about, but it's a major concern. In the development of V words against coronaviruses like SARS-CoV-1 and MERS in the early 2000s, researchers found evidence of a serious problem. Teams of U.S. and foreign scientists V-worded animals with the 4 most promising V words on the market. At first, the experiment seemed successful as all of the animals developed a robust antibody response to the coronavirus. However, when the scientists exposed the V-word animals to the wild virus, in other words, the virus that was already out there that could possibly infect them, the results were horrifying. V-worded animals suffered hyper immune responses, including inflammation throughout their body and especially in their lungs. So the very thing that is supposed to prevent them from having an adverse reaction to the virus is giving them the very reaction to the virus. And that's kind of a concern. And so going back to, they seemed to be doing well once they had the V word in their system. But then it was supposed to give them inoculation against the virus out in the wild, as they called it, caught naturally. And what they found was it not only didn't protect them when they got exposed to the virus out in the wild, but it actually had a hyper response because the body already had a little bit of it in their system. And these are in animals. And keep in mind, with the 9-1 DIVOC version of this V word, they skipped the animal trials, you guys. They went right to humans. Basically, phase 1 was just a blip on the map. Phase 2, they had a smaller human population. And by the time they got to phase 3, that larger population, but still didn't do the full vetting out like they normally would in the development of a V word. So this nurse friend of mine who commented over the weekend on my post saying, oh my gosh, you're misleading people about the V word. It wasn't rushed. It's been out there for a decade. Well, yeah, it's been out there a decade. And we saw major responses a decade ago in the animal models that shows there's a hyperimmune response leading to increased inflammation throughout the body, especially in the lungs. And guess what? If you get exposed to this virus out in the wild, even after getting inoculated with the V word, you're going to have a higher immune response that's going to make you more susceptible. Let's don't sweep this under the rug. Now, I hope this is dead wrong. I hope that the people that get inoculated get all of the benefits that they think they're going to get from it. I have a feeling there will be people who will get this shot and they will assume, okay, I'm okay. And therefore they might, let their guard down a little bit, may not socially distance. They may try to get back to some semblance of what they consider normal. And then what happens if they get exposed to 9-1 DIVOC out in the wild, as they called it, and then they get a major negative response? Can you imagine the confusion on people's faces when they start dealing with high fever, aches and pains, trouble breathing, loss of taste, and all and smell, all of the things that are the signs of this virus. What's going to happen if they get the V word and they still get infected? Is there going to be an outcry? Well, this is saying that it's a high probability that's exactly what's going to happen. If you joined us late, yes, we are talking about 9-1 DIVOC and the V word, since it just got approval, emergency use authorization from the FDA for the Pfizer version of it. Shortly behind that one will be the Moderna one. That's the next one coming. That's the one that is going to be easier to transport. The Pfizer one, they have to keep it negative 95 degrees Celsius. So it's incredibly hard to transport and get out and keep. The Moderna one just has to be refrigerated. That's really the only requirement for it. And then the AstraZeneca one, all three of these should be available within the next few weeks. Pfizer is already on its way to the like drugstores and things like that for distribution. But this is a major concern. I've already talked about the autoimmune trigger that this could be having, which was in the British Medical Journal. Now I'm reading from an article from children'shealthdefense.org all about this thing called pathogenic priming, especially in older adults. So if you got an adult over the age of 65 in your life, who I do, my mom is 70, and she's got several comorbidities, and I've been trying to keep her updated on all this information about the V word. It's concerning, and I hope it's concerning to you and your loved ones. And I know a lot of you have reached out. How do I explain this to my mom, my dad, the older people in my life? How do I explain it to them so they understand the gravity of this? Because they have fed us fear to sell this to us. But at some point, that fear is going to force them to make a decision they might regret. So that's the concern. All right, let me get back to the story. So this issue regarding the hyperimmune response in the animals who get the V word is very well known. Early in the 9-1 DIVOC scenario, Dr. Peter Hotez, he's from the Baylor College of Medicine, testified before Congress about the dangers of accelerating a coronavirus V word development. He said this: "The unique safety problems of coronavirus vaccines was discovered 50 years ago while developing the respiratory syncytial virus, the RSV V word. He went to register that this paradoxical immune enhancement phenomenon means that V-worded people may still develop the disease, get sicker, and die faster." Does that not send chills up and down your spine to think that because they didn't do the proper testing to see what the side effects are on this V word that they're now going to be shooting into people's arms within days? They didn't do the proper testing. And so therefore now we're in a situation where, will we see more people die? And I even said that on Jimmy Rants on Friday when I was reading those news stories. Watch what happens. We're going to have people die after they take the V word, mostly older people with comorbidities. And they'll say, oh, they got the coronavirus, and so therefore that's what killed them. No, they got the V word that was supposed to protect them supposedly from this. Like this is deeply, deeply concerning. I hope it is to you. Researchers had seen this same enhanced immune response during human testing of the failed RSV V-word tests in the 1950s. The V-words not only failed to prevent an infection, 80% of the children infected required hospitalization. 2 children challenged with the RSV died. In April of 2020, Hotez told CNN, if there is immune enhancement in animals, that has to be a showstopper. I mean, if they show an enhanced immune response that after they get the V word in animal studies, then they expose them to the virus itself out in the wild and they get major complications, you got to end the trial at that point and say, we can't put this through human trials. It's not ethical. That's why he calls it a showstopper. There's been a serious terminology problem with this issue. So listen to this part. This was really interesting. The problem, of course, is not immune enhancement. That's how they're going to pitch it to people. Well, when you get the V word, it's immune enhancement. It lets your body get exposed to just enough of this that it then enhances your body's ability to fight it. But listen to this. It sounds like it's something helpful to the immune system. In fact, though, it is quite the opposite. The problem is, in reality, disease enhancement. In fact, that is what it was called in the original study about the RSV. Disease enhancement now appears to be caused by initial exposure to the pathogen's proteins or part of the proteins, which then primes the body to autoimmunity, which we talked about in this letter to the editor. That is pathogenic priming. In 9.1 DIVOC, every protein in the SARS-CoV-2 has at least one epitope that matches human proteins somewhere in the human body. About 1/3 of the epitopes in SARS-CoV-2 virus that match human proteins match immune system proteins as well. Can you see this is an autoimmune disease pandemic waiting to explode? Between that letter to the editor of the BMJ and this article, are you getting the picture that there are major concerns here? And it's unfortunate that this didn't get a closer look. And if there's anything that you can use to try to convince people that this is a concerning thing, this is it. And anybody that has autoimmune disease already, you already have say type 1 diabetes or endometriosis or psoriasis or Crohn's or any of the number, there's many autoimmune diseases. Do you want to put your body in that situation again, that it's fighting itself and it's fighting actual healthy human tissue? I don't think you do. And anybody that has autoimmune disease will tell you, it sucks. We don't want that. Are we going to see a rapid increase with millions upon millions, maybe tens of millions of people taking this V word? Guys, are you getting the gravity of this today? It's why I wanted to start off the week of Jimmy Rants with this one, because it's that important. And we're literally within days of the first people in mass getting this thing. And it's frustrating from the standpoint of this knowledge is out there. Doesn't that give us pause? And I'll go back to, this has a 99.98% chance of survival for people under the age of 60. I don't think any of us in that category need to be taking this. But even the people over the age of 70, 75, who are at the greatest risk, even they have a 94% chance, which is ironically exactly the same chance of survival and effectiveness that these V words are having. Like, I'm just frustrated, you guys. And I know a lot of you guys are too, because you write to me all the time. How do I explain this? I don't understand why anybody would want to take this, da, 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 da. I guess we're just going to have to let people that want to take it and watch what happens. That's literally all we can do. I just have a feeling that if it's disaster, they're not going to blame it on the V word. They're going to blame it on, oh, that patient was just too sick. We couldn't save that one next. Oh, that patient was too sick. We couldn't save that one next. Oh, and they're just going to go right down the line and blame the individual for being too far gone for them to be helped. Watch what happens. They're not going to blame the V word. And I'm going to remind you, these V word companies, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and all the rest of them, they all have complete immunity. Speaking of, they have immunity from being sued. You cannot go after them if something happens. And in fact, I read on Friday's Jimmy Rants on the Ask Me Anything, I read from an article where somebody in one of the clinical trials of the V word said that they had side effects, and the manufacturer actually is suing them for defamation and lying and da-da-da for $13 million. And so they ain't going to play, and you'll have no recourse against them, but they have recourse against you if you talk smack about them. So, and depending on who the administration is with the presidency here in the United States, there may be some move to try to force this on us. And I've even seen a few news articles out there on YouTube where they talk about you can't go to the grocery store, you can't go to a movie theater, to a concert, or any of those things unless you get this thing and you have some passport that allows you to, I guess, scan a code when you walk in the door that proves you've had this. It's going to be tough on us who don't want to take this thing to live our life if certain powers that be get in there and mandate this. Let's get back to the story. The first issue is the categorization of serious versus non-serious adverse events in the study of the V word and in the report. To a person experiencing neurologic adverse events such as Bell's palsy, that is a neuroinflammatory and thrombotic event, these events are not non-serious and can, over time, develop into life-threatening conditions that require continuous medical intervention and repeated billable office visits for care. And again, that's on you. You can't go after the manufacturer of the V word if you start having these negative effects. That's going to affect your family's income and financial state if you have medical bills as a result of taking this V word for 9-1 DIVOC. Are you getting the picture here? The short-term study excludes any means of detecting whether the initial exposure may play a fundamental root cause role in setting up patients for a lifelong chronic illness. Guys, this is horrible. Autoimmune disease is nothing to play around with. And the problem is, once you have an autoimmune disease like type 1 diabetes, you're not cured. You can't get that back. Those of you that have Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune problems that just, you've got to take medications for life. It's autoimmune of the thyroid is what I was trying to think of. And so you've got to take pig thyroid or other forms of natural thyroid for the rest of your life. Type 1 diabetics, they have to take insulin for the rest of their life. What if somebody gets the 9-1 DIVOC V word and is forced to have to be on a chronic illness for the rest of their life? Let that sink in. This is scary stuff. And nobody seems to be sounding the alarm, which is why we're doing it here today on Jimmy Rants. The V word adverse events themselves that were seen in the Pfizer study may be indicative of pathogenic priming, especially since more serious adverse events were seen once they got the second dose. This is the thing, you guys. This Pfizer V word, you get the first dose, get a little bit of a reaction maybe or none. Second dose is the one that's seeming to get people. This ain't good. I hope you realize this. This is not good in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I get it. Oh, you're just anti-vaccine. No, I'm anti-rushed vaccine. I'm anti V word of anything that's going to cause my health to get worse. I think at this point, at least for me and many of you guys watching this, at this point, your far greater chance of not having negative effects from this is to get exposed to 9-1 DIVOC in the wild on your own with your immune system fighting it off. That's going to be your best chance, because otherwise it's a crapshoot. It's a Russian roulette with your health if you take this V word, and especially that second shot from Pfizer, and you develop autoimmune disease. Guess what, guys? You don't reverse that. There is no cure for type 1 diabetes. There's no cure for Hashimoto's. Now, you can manage Hashimoto's with good diet and obviously desiccated pig thyroid. You can manage type 1 diabetes by injecting yourself with insulin. But guys, that doesn't come without consequences. Let's not pretend like, oh, well, it's for the greater good. We all take this V word. And, oh, you're a horrible person if you don't get it. And you should just get with the program. No. It's not going to happen. I know too much. There's too much information that I've seen I can't unsee. The second issue is that the design and analysis setup of the study is biased against finding any adverse events. In the report, they state, among non-serious unsolicited adverse events, listen to these non-serious adverse events, there was a numerical imbalance of 4 cases of Bell's palsy in the V-word group compared with no cases in the placebo. Although the 4 cases in the V-word group do not represent a frequency above that expected in the general population. 4 cases? How about no cases? Why did 4 get Bell's palsy? Scary. Scary, scary. Ugh. I'm sorry, I'm frustrated today because this is serious stuff and nobody's talking about it. The comparison to baseline rates is meaningless because other V words are in use in the population already. Thus, any risk due to the 9-1 DIVOC V word adds to or multiplies existing risk present in the population from other V words. In other words, other V words, and then you get this V word on top of those V words, it makes it even worse. Are you guys frustrated like I am to my... Among the 18 to 55-year-old participants, there were 370 solicited serious adverse events. This is in the Pfizer study in the V-word group and 73 in the un-V-word group. Of the V-worded, 18% experienced these serious adverse events. In the placebo group, it was only 3%, implying that these serious adverse events can be expected at a rate 5 times greater in those who get the V word as compared to those who don't. Guys, if we have millions of people start to take this V word, are they going to try to cover up the effects that are happening? Like, I hope they keep a database that is public, where people can see who has taken it, not names, of course, but statistics of numbers of people who've taken it. And then if they get hospitalized and they're diagnosed with something, that is updated, that, X percent got autoimmune disease. Like, I want to see that data, because if we don't see that data, they're going to sweep this under the rug. And oh my gosh, like all these people in America suddenly getting autoimmune. I don't want to be alarmist, but if you're not thinking about this now, it's too late once people get the V word, once people start developing this. And then what happens if enough people develop it and we know about it? There's going to be such anger and outrage. What are they going to do at that point? It's scary. So these side effects include severe fatigue, headache, chills, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle and joint pain. Whether these conditions represent instances of pathogenic priming, identifying individuals who are now at high risk of serious morbidity and mortality if they become infected with SARS-CoV-2 is unknown, but given past studies, it seems likely. And like I said, there's been people that were a part of the trial, Pfizer's trial for the V word. And I read a story over the weekend of this nurse that actually got it. And she reported, oh yeah, like the next day after getting the V word, I had 104.5 degree temperature. I had chills, fatigue, headache, blah, 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 blah. And after a couple of days, she was better. Now she got the V word and it gave her that reaction. What happens if this lady gets exposed to the virus in the wild for 9-1 DIVOC? Is she going to have a worse response? That's what we don't know. They didn't do that test in the clinical trials. In the over 55 group in this trial, which was a smaller group, there were 60 adverse events in the V word group, 24 in the un-V word. Of the V word, 6.5% experienced the SAE compared to 1.4 in the un-V word, implying that there was a 4.46% increased risk of these severe adverse events due to getting the V word. However, in the older group, the V word group was 10 times more likely to have a serious adverse event upon receipt of the second V-word dose than the first dose compared to the 1-to-1 ratio in those who were un-V-worded. In the younger group, the V-worded were only 3.61 times more likely to have second dose SSAEs, that's the serious adverse events, than the age-matched placebo group, which had about as many in the first and the second group. So as you can see, the older population are going to be the most susceptible. And yet this is the population they're trying to target for this first. Anybody got a grandma, grandpa, uncle, aunt, somebody you love in your life who is over the age of 70, maybe in a nursing home, maybe hasn't had very good health in recent years? Are you worried? You know, they were all worried about the kids going to school and getting exposed to 9-1 DIVOC and then bringing it home to grandma and killing them. But this seems a lot more real and present danger than that. But they have given us so much fear, and especially the older population, which tends to be very trusting of what they hear about medical stuff. That's another challenge to this whole situation. The baby boomer generation and a little bit of the older Gen X, which is what I'm a part of, generation, they seem to be trusting of medical. Now, I'm not, and a lot of you guys aren't either, because we've seen how they've lied to us about all kinds of things in the past. Why would we believe them now? It's very challenging when you see the pharmaceutical industry do all kinds of deceptive tactics in other areas. And now we're supposed to believe that this is the bee's knees when it comes to your health. So we're more in the know, basically 50 and younger. You're more in the know and you're more trusting of yourself than you are of the medical system. But over the age of 50, 55, and definitely into the 60s, 70s, 80s and higher, you're very trusting of the medical profession. And so they're going to be ones to jump at this, which is why I'm glad my mom is listening to me, at least putting a pause on whether she's going to get this or not. So the animal trials were insufficient. The patients in the study reviewed were healthy, and thus the spectrum of adverse events is not representative of those that might occur if the V word gets to the market, which it has. This has been my problem in the phase 3 trial of the Pfizer V word, and probably all of them. They didn't test older people. They didn't test people with comorbidities. They didn't test young people. They only tested healthy people in that 18 to 50 something year old range. So now they're going to give it to 70 somethings who have two or three comorbidities, and suddenly we're going to think they're going to be okay. We can't just assume that they're going to be okay. And this isn't about anti-V word or pro-V word. It's about this has major concerns. It should give us pause. There is no rush to get this out there if there's concerns. The problem is Pandora's box is now open. The Pfizer V word is already on the way, en route to local places where they're going to distribute it. God bless the frontline workers that are going to have to take this thing in the health industry. And then older people, just watch in the coming months. Just watch what happens in nursing homes and other places where they've given this. I'm deeply, deeply concerned, you guys. In previous animal trials, the first dose was a V word, but the second was natural infection, leading to severe injury and oftentimes death. These were in the animal trials, previous ones done on other coronaviruses. In these human trials, both doses were the V word, but it is also not reassuring that these adverse events did not include the more serious and deadly conditions that afflicted animals. And this is the part they were talking about earlier. Once they got exposed, after getting the V word, got exposed to the virus in the wild, they had a major inflammatory attack, hyper immunoresponse. And that's what we don't know about this. And if we don't know, we don't need to be doing it. We need to know. We need to see what happens. I think the reason they stayed away from older people and away from several comorbidities in young people is they did not want to see negative effects at a high percentage. Now, they had some major effects at what I would think is a high percentage, but they didn't want to see a bunch of people die. And so if a bunch of people died, it would kill this coming to the market. So they fudged the numbers and they did a lot of cutting corners getting this thing to the market. And now that cutting corners, that foundation of that house that's not on solid ground is going to come crumbling at some point. These human trials did not rule out pathogenic priming in any way. Both the Moderna and the Pfizer animal studies, which used non-human primates, failed to examine organ sites other than the lungs. And while they studied potential markers of pathogenic priming, they failed to measure one, listen to this, interleukin-5, which has been found in prior coronavirus studies to be elevated in conjunction with pathogenic priming-induced disease enhancement. And if you came in late, go back and watch the beginning of this, because I read from a British medical journal letter to the editor about concerns with this 9,1-DIVOC V word leading to autoimmune disease. And in this article I'm reading from now, that's exactly what they're talking about, that there a lot of the things that are happening in the body when people get injected with this V word are making it seem like, because they mimic some of the tissue in the body then starts attacking the healthy tissue in your body, leading to autoimmune disease. That doesn't come without consequences. Recalling that animal studies conducted on prior 9,1-DIVOC vaccines, or just coronavirus vaccines, found pathogenic priming leading to disease enhancement in older animals more than younger animals. Older adults may be at higher risk of serious chronic illness due to autoimmunity resulting from the V word-induced pathogenic priming. This is the concern. Dr. Anthony Fauci has informed the public that these V words do not stop transmission. Oh, really, Dr. Fauci? Then why are we getting it if it doesn't stop transmission? So you get the V word, but you still got to socially distance. You get the V word, but you still got to wear a mask. You get the V word, you still got to stay. I'm not understanding. I thought the V word was supposed to be the miracle cure so everything can get back to normal. Guys, if you're one of those people that thinks we're going to be back to normal even after this V word is out there, don't even think about it. Therefore, the next dose of the viral proteins in the form of a natural infection for the study participants, a SARS-CoV-2 infection, which led to 9,1-DIVOC, may be their last. The study should be extended to long-term follow-up, including any further V word or exposure to SARS-CoV-2 viral proteins by infection. They've even talked about, I remember Dr. Fauci saying this in some video, that, yeah, you get the 2 doses of the Pfizer V word, but then you need booster shots periodically. Every 6 months, once a year, you get a booster shot. And so you're constantly going to get injected. And I'm thinking, through the history of my lifetime, I don't remember any coronavirus or otherwise where you need to have injection after injection after injection. I don't know about you, but that just seems crazy. So why have the world's top V word promoters like Paul Offit and Peter Hotez been warning us frantically about the unique and frightening dangers inherent to developing a coronavirus V word? In video footage, Offit, Hotez, and even Dr. Fauci, in an unguarded moment, warned that any new coronavirus V word could trigger lethal immune reactions, vaccine enhancement when V-worded people come in contact with the wild virus. That's the thing, guys. People are going to assume that if they get exposed to 9,1-DIVOC after getting this V word, that they're suddenly going to be just fine and it's just going to repel off of them. What if it makes it worse? What if once they're exposed to the 9,1-DIVOC out in the wild after getting the V word, what if it reacts worse? What if your immune system not exposed to this V word, would have taken care of 9-1 DIVOC. But now suddenly, because you got the V word, it's going to make you that much more at risk of adverse events and even death. Think about this. Instead of proceeding with caution, Dr. Fauci made the reckless choice to fast track this V word, partially funded by Bill Gates, without critical animal studies before moving into human trials that could provide early warning of a runaway immune response. In a video, Bill Gates is so worried about the dangers of adverse events that he says V words should not be distributed until governments can agree to indemnify the V word companies against lawsuits. Guys, that's why they have the immunity from the lawsuits. They know it's going to cause people to get sick. They know. So if they know, why would you put yourself through that? Why would you allow a family member that you love to get this and not warn them of some of the consequences that even the makers themselves, even the ones who stand to benefit financially from this, which is both Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates, by the way, why wouldn't you let them know? I hope you're letting them know. On February 4th, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, there were only 11 active coronavirus cases in the U.S., yet the U.S. quietly pushed through federal regulations which gave coronavirus V word makers full immunity from liability. So even before this thing was a thing on our shores, they were already setting it up that if you get sick, you are SOL. Are you mad? I think you should be. And you should be informed, which is what I try to do here on Jimmy Rants, give you good information. It doesn't make me popular all the time because I know I've had some of my medical professional friends say, oh, you're fear-mongering people and scaring them with information that isn't quite right. And I said, okay, fine. Tell me the information that's right. Tell me this British medical journal letter to the editor that was written by a medical doctor with concerns. Tell me all of the other concerns that I did in the second article. Tell me what's wrong with those things. Tell me why we didn't do the animal trials early on so that we could see how this would react. Tell me why they rushed through phase 2 to get to phase 3, and in phase 3, they only tested healthy people. Tell me, convince me otherwise. That's the problem. They just want us to shut up and take the damn V word. And I, for one, am not. There's no way. And if it means I have to stay in my vicinity because I can't travel on a plane, or if it means I can't go traditionally shopping at stores or go to events, so be it. I think we're playing Russian roulette if you take this V word. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. We're going to come here first to Instagram, at Jimmy Rants over on Instagram, by the way. Then over to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. You got full on fired up ranty Jimmy today here on Jimmy Rants. Let's see what you guys have to say about this one. Lavender Love. I find it interesting that the CDC used colloidal silver for the virus, yet that's not being talked about. Yeah, none of the therapeutics are being talked about at all. I mean, earlier in the year, it was hydroxychloroquine. There's a new one. I just put it on my stories on the Living Low Carb Man page. Go check that out in my stories of a doctor who testified before Congress recently. And he said there's this drug or a natural therapeutic that he has used for many years now. And he started using it on his 9-1 DIVOC patients. And he said it basically is a prophylactic preventing you from getting it. So why aren't we using that? And it's a lot cheaper than having a V word with none of the autoimmune risks. So yeah, the therapeutics, that's a whole nother issue. Why have they silenced all the therapeutics that could be used? And they blocked doctors from being able to prescribe hydroxychloroquine and some other things. They're just not giving the full information because, unfortunately, Jaded Jimmy says they're trying to sell a V word. Molly says, what will they do with all the new unemployment claims from workers myself included, who refused to take the V word. 38 years of emergency medicine and done. Yeah, Molly, I'm sorry to hear that, by the way. Definitely in the medical profession, teachers, really anybody that works in the public sector around lots of people, they're going to require that you take this. What do they do? And then what are they going to do with the people who don't comply? It's scary times, that's for sure. So the possibility is getting the V word and then more people pass. I don't know what you're asking there. I think you mean, so the possibility is people get the V word and more people will die. Yeah. And then they'll just say it was a COVID death. That's what they're going to say. You watch. They were already too far gone that even the V word couldn't prevent this from harming them. You watch. They keep kicking me out of your live feed. Sorry, Molly. That might be an Instagram thing. They don't like me talking about controversial stuff. The Cavaliers of my heart, I don't want this V word. I'm scared for my parents. They need to just wait it out. My daughter is a nurse, and if they make her, I'm concerned. She's only 22. Yeah, 22. I mean, she's possibly going to get set up for a lifetime of autoimmune disease. That's no bueno. I know they have immunity for this if someone dies. Most V words are like that, or is that uncommon? I know they have. I don't know what you're asking. I don't get what your question is. Sorry about that. I'll only get it if my job requires it. I do not want it though. Well, even in that case, even if your job requires it, Cavaliers, I'd be very wary. Cariana says it seems a huge portion of the population has just refused to think rationally. Makes me very concerned. Yeah, you and me both. Rationality is out the window. And that's what I was telling this nurse friend of mine. She had someone else chime in on this post I did over the weekend with my thoughts about the V word. And somebody else said, so you're a doctor now? And I responded back, no, I'm not a doctor, but I am a critical thinker. And if you critically think and think for yourself and do your own research and take into consideration everything that you know, then you can make an informed decision. Last time I checked, doctors do not have the power to make you do anything. They are merely a consultant in your health. I'm going to remind you guys of this. You are the final arbiter in your health, not a doctor, not anybody else. You get to make that choice. And that's why I've been against the lockdowns, against wearing a mask if you don't want to wear one. You make the choice. And if somebody is scared, they can stay home and lock down. They can put on a mask. They can do all the things. Don't take away individual freedoms to do what you feel is best for you. I'm going to take on those risks. You don't have to take on those risks. And if you're that scared, stay home. It's kind of interesting how much the pharmaceutical companies could make from all this. Oh, we're talking billions, maybe trillions of dollars distributed around the world. It's going to be perhaps their greatest moneymaker of all time. And that to me should give everybody pause as well. Why, if in the middle of a global pandemic, are there going to be companies like that making so much money off of this thing? To me, if it's about public health, it should be, they shouldn't make profit, obviously get reimbursed, or not major profit. They obviously should get reimbursed for the R&D, which the government gave them billions of dollars to develop this. But don't need to reimburse the government for the money, and then any extra from that back into our finances, fix the economy and redistribute it back down to those people who lost their jobs because of this pandemic. Like, that's, to me, if they did that, okay, it'd be a little more ethical. But we see the real motive here, guys. It's a scary thought process if you let yourself go down that. Kelly says, yes, I already have MS and psoriasis and thyroid disease. And trust me, you don't want these things. No, you do not. Eat a metabolic healthy diet like carnivore keto. Keep your vitamin D level up. My doctor says if I got 9 DIVOC, I'll have no effects at all, no problem. I just don't want the V word, period. And you are not alone. Angie says you won't see any negative data. Same when our soldiers came back from the Gulf War and their babies had multiple birth defects. I think Congress should be the first to get the V word. Yeah, well, it's interesting. I saw a story this morning where I think the CDC put out that, for continuity of government, we're going to make sure all of the executive, judicial, and legislative branches all get this first. And President Trump, to his credit, said, no, we're not going to do that in the executive branch. Get it out to people who need it. We can all get it later unless there's some reason why people in the executive branch need it sooner. So he pretty much said, no, we're not going to do that here. But you're right. Like the Vietnam War was Agent Orange, and for many years they denied those things as well. So yeah, we have a history of them sweeping things under the rug. Angie says if Congress had to take it, we could see who refuses to take it. I would say it would be shocking to see who would refuse to take it. Cavaliers of my heart, my parents are 79 and 82, otherwise healthy, but my dad has type 2 diabetes. He lost 50 pounds and it's under control. They are so fearful they want to get it right away, and I'm afraid of that. Yes. I'm not trusting this. I'm only 45. Yeah, I'm 48 and I don't have any qualms about skipping this V word. It's pretty darn sad that we have to say 9-1 DIVOC V word for fear of repercussions from exposing these money-grabbing, greedy companies. Very sad. Doctors are not looking out for our health. No, and neither is social media companies, where I have to say 9-1 DIVOC for what you know it is and V word for what you know it is. But that's how we have to play the game, so they don't shadow ban me. They might catch on at some point, though. You were saying that if people die to the V word, they aren't responsible. Is that the same with different V word? Well, this specific one is what I'm talking about. At the end of that story I just read from, it said back in February, before we even had this as a major thing in America, they already indemnified the V word manufacturers from having any lawsuits against them. So even before they developed this V word, they already said, yep, we're not going to let people sue. So I don't know the way it is with other V words. Honestly don't, but this one, they won't let you sue. Adam says, my daughter was sick. They tested her for flu, strep, and 9-1 DIVOC. Cost a lot of money. Yeah. And that's another little layer to this, Adam, is they're adding all these extra costs, because anytime you have any symptoms that would fall under the category of 9-1 DIVOC, they just automatically assume, okay, well, we need to test for that, which is why nobody wants to go to the hospital this year, which is why a lot of people have skipped their like checkups on things related to their heart, cancer, to brain health, on and on and on, which is why I think we need to watch what's going to happen in the coming year or two, because without those preventative things, we're going to see a lot more people get sick and die. But then we add on top of it, the people going to be taking the V word and getting sickness from that. It's just going to be a convoluted mess. All right. Thank you, Instagram. Let me pop over here now to my Facebook page. What's up, Facebook? See what you guys have to say on this one. My husband's 57, says Melissa. Is he going to take it? 57? That's pretty young still. Berkeley says, I had a hyper response to the flu shot when I was 65. Will never get another V word of any kind. I'm 70 now. Ironically, I have never gotten the flu, and I have 3 autoimmune diseases. Yeah. I have never taken the flu shot either. I just don't. Sharon says, I'm 76 and will never take this V word. Good for you, Sharon. Maxine says, I have adrenal problems. I do not want this V word. To be honest, the adrenal issues started after I had the swine flu V word in 2010. I'm petrified I'll be forced to take this V word because of my work. Well, I hope not, Maxine. Let me know how that goes. What's scary is that people work in medical field are recommended to get it. My daughter is LPN working in nursing home. Ew. That's going to be tough. Sharon says, trachea, stenosis, and AFib, not doing this V, but what we do when we made to take it. Yeah, that's going to be the thing, Sharon. If they mandate this, I think they're going to have a fight on their hands if they try to mandate it. There's no way they can mandate this if people have serious concerns. Doing all this, I've definitely gotten closer to my Lord to get rid of the fear. Yeah. You know what I did, guys? I cut off all my TV, which I wasn't really watching TV anyway, but I actually called the company. I called DirecTV and said, I need to stop paying for this because I'm not watching. And, oh, you sure you can watch that? I don't want to watch. I hadn't watched any TV throughout all this, and my life has been peaceful. The only way I find these kind of articles is I have people send stuff to me, and I also kind of keep my eye on any kind of key articles that I see coming out there to keep you guys informed. Fortunately, I question all medical explanations. I trust my own instinct and all I have learned through keto and other things. That's good, Berkeley. Honestly, we of the 70 and above are expendable in the eyes of Medicare. Well, yeah, not just Medicare, but society itself, unfortunately. And I think when this V word gets administered to people in your age group and higher, and people start dying, well, that's what happens when you get old. That's what they're going to say. And they're not going to blame this V word. Carolina says, okay, then why do they want us to take that V word? Well, there's going to be a lot of money made. I do know that. That's the jaded part of Jimmy. They also have so ginned up fear in people, and they want people to think that this will alleviate that fear from continuing. Now, the why goes deep, Carolina. So I don't want to try to assume all the angles of the why. Let's just put it this way. There's a lot of power that has been grabbed. There's a lot of money that has been made. There's a lot of shifts in the socioeconomics of America and around the world that's taken place because of this. All of that is attractive to certain people that, unfortunately, I think don't have America's best interests in mind. So just keep that in mind as well. Tanya says, yep, I'm fired up, Jimmy, conjuring up a Facebook post about it, sending this info and this episode to all my friends. Well, thank you for that. Judy says, what happens to people like it's the V word that already has an autoimmune disease? I have a great niece that has type 1. It makes me very worried. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, that if someone already has autoimmune and this triggers autoimmunity, what is going to happen? It is a major concern. We don't know is the answer. We don't have any idea. If we don't take the V word, maybe if we get sick, the insurance won't cover it. Well, again, the ramifications of this taking the V word versus not taking the V word, I think they're going to make it extremely difficult on you if you choose not to take it. And that's how they're going to force a lot of people to do it, because people won't go through the hassle. Oh, it's just a shot in the arm. It's no big deal. And then they don't know about what I just shared with you on today's Jimmy Rants. What do we do if we're made to take the V word, bend over and kiss your sweet blank goodbye? Maybe. I don't know about that, but you certainly will have a different quality of life than you were expecting. Holly says, dang, I'm late. I'll have to watch the replay. Definitely watch the replay of this one, you guys. And those of you that are watching live, be sure, send this to everybody you know who has concerns about the 9-1 DIVOC V word. A lot of really interesting things you're not hearing in the mainstream. Okay, thank you, Facebook. Let's pop over here now to pull you guys a little bit closer over here on YouTube. What's up, YouTube? They will censor any negative results from the V word, says Greener Pastures. That's the thing. They don't want people to know that there's people getting negative side effects, especially that first wave is going to be a couple of million people. So that first, bunches of doses. What happens if they give it to frontline workers and they give it to people in nursing homes, and there's this huge outpouring of, oh my God, my grandfather died. Well, so did mine. Oh, mine too. And it's going to put fear in people's minds about taking this. I think it's at that point where, depending on who's leading the country, they might double down and say, we know there's been these, but they were going to die anyway. You need to take this, and we mandate it. That's when we're going to have some major pushback from a lot of people. But I don't know. Will it be too late? I don't know. I'll take the over 65 odds all day at any casino, says Gary. Yeah, the 94% with your own immune system. That's true. I see an opportunity for fake proof of V shot if demands of V proof is needed. Well, Gary, that's interesting because there are people out there who can hack into these systems and make it seem like, oh yeah, I got it, and you've got the little thing on your phone or whatever. I don't know. Will they put something in the V word that they can like wand you, and they can tell if you like a metal detector type thing? Okay, yeah, you got the V word, or if it. Nope, you don't have the V word. You need to get out of here. It's also scary for us, says Marianne. It could be, potentially. I'm not trying to fearmonger or scare you guys, just trying to inform and get you to think of the possibilities here. Shirley says, you'd have to hold me down to take it. My husband and his parents think this thing is great, talking about the V word. He thinks I'm crazy, though. LOL. Yeah. Never trust anyone over the age of 30. You mean under the age of 30? Carrie says, people are not responding to truth, though. Logic and data are puny weapons against emotional hysteria. I'm at a loss. Carrie, you are so right. When you gin people up into an emotional state, it's almost impossible for them to think, which is why I've tried to encourage people, even though you're feeling fear, even though you're feeling depressed and down and anxious and all the things, you got to kind of keep yourself grounded in logic and facts so that you don't get overcome by that. Craig says, since the beginning, the cure has been far worse than the virus. Give me 991 DIVOC over facial paralysis all day long. Yeah, I still can't get over all the people who have committed suicide and other problems in our society that this has caused. I'm in Facebook jail, so I can't comment there, says Debbie. I read a piece yesterday that stated some of the participants in the trials got Bell's palsy. Yep, I just read that here. My dad is 87 years old and has suffered the last 2 years with multiple underlying comorbidities. His wife asked his wound care doctors if he should get the V word. They said no. I'm thankful for that. Now, that's interesting. I mean, he's 87 and he has multiple underlying comorbidities. I mean, I think at that point, let that person decide, you know, let what happens. I told this the other day, but I was in a grocery store and there were these older ladies, probably in their 70s, one of them in one of those little go around carts in the grocery store, the motorized carts. And she just suddenly stopped and was looking at something. And she was, like I said, with another older lady. And so I stayed back when I'm around people in stores and I stopped because I didn't know what she was doing. I didn't know if she's going to turn in or she's going to stay there and look what she, and finally the other lady's like, oh, I think that gentleman wants to get by. I said, no, I'm okay. I just didn't want to scare you by coming right up on you. And she looked at me in the eyes. She said, son, I'm too old to be scared. So I think that generation's just going to be like, you know what? We're good. We're really good. Craig says officially 0 people will have died from the flu in 2020. Also pneumonia. They'll all be labeled scandemic deaths. Yeah, they stopped counting flus. We don't have the flu anymore. 9-1 DIVOC cured the flu. I see those memes all over the place. Bob Dylan reference when you spoke about trust. Yes. Oh, thank you, Gary. Thank you. All right. Thank you, YouTube. Let's see if there's any last comments over here on Instagram. My daughter is in nursing school, almost an RN, works at a local hospital, said each positive 9-1 DIVOC case gets $3,000 to $4,000. They put them inpatient even for 1 hour. They get $33,000. Yeah, I talked about that earlier in the year. And that's incentive, sadly. More than likely, you will pop up positive, even if you actually are not. So I will not even report any symptoms if I have them. Yeah. We've done a lot of talking about the testing for this, how it's not very accurate. And even the guy that created the PCR test, he said this was never meant to isolate any specific coronavirus, and most certainly not 9-1 DIVOC. So he said, we need to stop. This is the guy that invented the test that's diagnosing people with 9-1 DIVOC, guys. Listen, he has come out and said this was not meant to diagnose 9-1 DIVOC. Have you heard that? Have you seen that out there? No, they're trying to keep that out of the public eye. This is why I think there's nefarious things going on far beyond what we're seeing, which is why you need to have eyes wide open. Kelly says, I asked my sister if her family was getting it, and they all are. She called a conspiracy theorist, called me a conspiracy theorist, and said I was getting less scientific by the minute. Well, that's unfortunate. I guess people are going to have to make their choices and then live with those choices, good or bad. We'll see. Cavaliers of my heart, sadly, the military won't have a choice. If it's required, they cannot refuse. Sadly, our soldiers will be their test dummies. Yep, soldiers, frontline medical workers, and I even put this out there. I posited a theory a couple months ago. If the frontline workers in the medical healthcare industry get this, and a bunch of them get adverse effects, what do we do for medical care? Who is going to take care of people that get sick? It's food for thought, something to think about. But this coming 9-1 DIVOC V word, guys, a lot more side effects than we know. And we got a letter to the editor of the British Medical Journal concerned about autoimmune. We've got this story about the actual trials that they did on the Pfizer version of the 9-1 DIVOC V word, concerned about pathogenic priming, which leads to autoimmune. This ain't good. And I hope this information was helpful to you today. It's one of the things I love doing here on Jimmy Rants. So thank you for being here today. And that's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, come engage live. We start right here on Instagram. We are Jimmy Rants over on Instagram. So follow me on that page. We go on an Instagram live right at 11 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. And we also simulcast over on my Facebook page as well as over on YouTube. Thank you all for being here today. We put the past episodes up on replay over on Instagram TV, IGTV right here on Jimmy Rants. So go watch the past episodes there. We also put them up over on YouTube. If you type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. JimmyRants.com is also the official website for this show. So thank you for watching and listening. I got a lot of great stories for you guys this week, by the way. So tomorrow, we're going to talk about a study about lower carb diets increasing total energy expenditure. So that recently came out from Dr. David Ludwig and his group. Then on Wednesday, we're going to talk about research that has identified a new personality construct that describes people who tend to see themselves as victims. You know anybody in your life like that? That's coming up on Wednesday. Thursday, I got a really bogus study. I kind of like doing the bogus studies just as much, but I got a really bogus study that's looking at low-carb diets and their progression of coronary artery calcium. In other words, they're making the claim in the study that they have evidence that if you eat a low-carb diet over the long term, you're going to get atherosclerosis and calcium deposits in your chest. Now, you guys have watched me long enough. You know from my book, Cholesterol Clarity, just the opposite happens. So WTF, we're going to get into why that is a horrible, horrible study coming up on Thursday, and then Friday is Ask Me Anything. So we got a full slate of great topics for you guys this week on Jimmy Rants. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Bye. All righty then. Mark of the beast. Could be. The vaccine, the mark of the beast. Is that what you're talking about? I came in late, so going to watch the whole live. Yes, Debbie. Anybody that came in late, please go back and watch from the beginning because lots of really good information in here. I'm concerned. Truly, truly concerned. All right, guys, let me pop off of here for now. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye. Jimmy, is it true that the V word a two-shot thing or a one-time thing? So, yeah, in the show, Marianne, I actually mentioned that Pfizer, their version of the V word is a two-shot thing. And if you go back and watch the beginning, it's the first shot that's pretty much innocuous. Nobody really has anything bad happen. It's the second shot where people tend to have the adverse effects. So just be aware of that. If a billionaire can't get trustable test results for the bug, then who can? Yes, Gary. The other thing I didn't mention on there, but I've mentioned in other Jimmy Rants before, is they've never isolated 9-1 DIVOC in a lab. Did you know that? So they've never actually isolated this thing in a lab. So how exactly are they testing for something they haven't isolated for? How exactly are they going to be V-wording people for something that they haven't isolated in a lab? Think about that. Drink bottles of Coke for a healthy diet. Yeah. All right, guys, let me get off of here for now. Thank you for watching. I hope you're still enjoying the feed here on my computer. I do love the chat in this way. So it's all along the side for me to read all along the way. So I'm going to keep using this. This is a really cool setup, and I still have my microphone right there. So we like it. We like it. I will be adding in, was it Rumble? I think it's the other video format. Just as soon as I get my iPhone 10 fixed, which they still don't have the part in for me yet. So when they get that part in and I get my iPhone 10 back, then I will go live on Rumble as well. So it's kind of a YouTube alternative because I never know when they're going to pull me down here on YouTube. So thank you guys for sticking around, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.